Winter 1903, New York City. Mary Anderson sits in a streetcar, watching the driver struggle through a snowstorm. The snow is coming down heavy. The driver can barely see through the windshield. Every few minutes he has to stop the streetcar, climb out into the freezing cold and wipe the snow off the glass by hand. Then he climbs back in, drives forward another block, and the windshield is covered again. Stop, climb out, wipe, climb back in, drive, over and over. The passengers are frustrated, they're late, they're cold. Everyone is shouting at the driver to go faster. But he can't. He literally cannot see. Mary watches this and thinks, "This is insane. There has to be a better way." She pulls out a notebook and starts sketching. A mechanical arm, attached to the outside of the windshield, controlled from inside the vehicle. A rubber blade that swipes across the glass, clearing snow and rain. Simple, obvious. She sketches it right there on the streetcar. By the time she gets home, she has the complete design in her head. Within months, she's built a prototype. It works perfectly. In 1903, Mary Anderson files for a patent, window cleaning device, U.S. Patent 743801, granted November 10, 1903, the first windshield wiper. She tries to sell it. She contacts companies, manufacturers, carriage makers. Everyone says the same thing. Interesting, but not practical. One company writes back, "We do not consider it to be of such commercial value as would warrant our undertaking its sale. Not commercially valuable." By 1920, there are 8 million cars on American roads. Every single one needs windshield wipers. By 1922, Cadillac installs windshield wipers as standard equipment. By 1940, every car in America has them. Mary Anderson's invention became one of the most essential safety features in automotive history, and she never made a single cent from it. Her patent expired in 1920. The same year, cars started mass-producing wipers. She died in 1953, age 87, in obscurity. Meanwhile, Henry Ford, who put wipers on every Model T, became the richest man in America. His company made billions, literally billions. Mary Anderson died with nothing. But to understand how the woman who invented one of the most essential car safety features died poor and forgotten, we need to go back to the beginning, to Alabama, 1866. To a girl born into a world that didn't believe women could invent anything. Mary Elizabeth Anderson was born on February 19, 1866, in Greene County, Alabama. The Civil War had just ended. The South was in ruins. Alabama was devastated, economically, socially, physically. Mary's family owned a farm, not a plantation. They weren't wealthy. They were struggling landowners trying to survive Reconstruction. Her father died when she was young. Suddenly her mother was alone with children and a failing farm. Mary grew up fast. She learned to fix things, repair tools, solve problems. There was no money to hire help. If something broke, you fixed it yourself or you went without. Mary learned to go without nothing. She figured things out. She was smart, observant, practical. But she was also a woman in the 1870s South. Education for girls meant basic reading and writing, maybe some arithmetic. That was it. Her job was to get married, have children, run a household. Mary did none of those things. She never married, never had children. In an era where a woman's worth was measured by marriage, Mary chose independence. This was radical, dangerous even. Unmarried women were pitied, whispered about, seen as failures. Mary didn't care. By the 1890s, Mary and her widowed mother moved to Birmingham, Alabama. The city was growing, industrializing. Mary built a small real estate business. She bought properties, renovated them, rented them out. She was good at it. She had an eye for value, for potential. By the early 1900s, Mary was financially comfortable, not rich but independent, and independence meant freedom, freedom to travel. In 1902, Mary took a trip to New York City. She'd never been. She wanted to see the modern world. Trolleys, streetcars, automobiles, electricity, skyscrapers. It was overwhelming, exciting, chaotic. And that's when she saw it, the driver problem. Winter in New York was brutal. snow, sleet, freezing rain, and every driver, streetcar, automobile, carriage, had the same problem. They couldn't see. Windshields would ice over. Snow would pile up. Drivers had three options. 1. Stop constantly and get out to wipe the windshield by hand. Slow, dangerous, freezing. 2. Drive with the windshield open. Faster, but now you're being pelted with snow and ice directly in the face. 3. Lean out the side window and try to see around the windshield. Absurd. Dangerous. Mary watched drivers doing all three. She watched accidents happen, near misses, frustration, and she thought, why doesn't someone invent something? Then she realized, I can invent something. She wasn't an engineer. She had no formal training. She'd never invented anything. But she understood mechanics. She understood the problem, and she could see the solution. That night in her hotel room, she sketched the first design, a lever inside the vehicle, connected to a spring-loaded arm on the outside, a rubber blade attached to the arm. Pull the lever. The arm swings across the windshield. The blade clears the snow. Release the lever. The arm swings back. Simple, mechanical, no stopping, no getting out, no freezing. She refined the design over the next few months. Built a working prototype with the help of a local machinist. It worked perfectly. She filed for a patent on June 18, 1903. The patent was granted on November 10, 1903. U.S. Patent 743-801, window cleaning device. The application describes a device for clearing snow, rain, or sleet from a windshield, operated by the driver from inside the vehicle. It included detailed drawings, the lever mechanism, the spring-loaded arm, the rubber blade. It was the first functional windshield wiper ever patented. Mary was 37 years old, a single woman, an inventor. Now she just needed someone to buy it. Mary knew she couldn't manufacture windshield wipers herself. She didn't have a factory, didn't have capital. She needed to sell the patent to a company that could mass produce it. So she started contacting manufacturers, carriage companies, early automobile manufacturers, streetcar operators. She wrote letters, sent diagrams, explained the invention. The responses ranged from polite dismissal to outright mockery. One company replied, "We do not consider it to be of such commercial value as would warrant our undertaking its sale." Another said windshield wipers would distract the driver. A third claimed that drivers preferred to stop and wipe manually because it gave them a chance to check the vehicle. These were excuses. The real reason was simpler. Mary was a woman. In 1903, women couldn't vote, couldn't serve on juries, couldn't open bank accounts without a male guardian in many states. The idea that a woman could invent something genuinely useful, something mechanical, was laughable to most men. If a man had invented the windshield wiper, he would have been taken seriously. But Mary was dismissed, ignored, patronized. One potential investor told her directly, if this invention had any value, a man would have already thought of it. Mary kept trying, for years. She demonstrated the device, showed it worked, explained the need. Nobody bought it. By 1910, she gave up. She let the patent sit. She went back to her real estate business in Alabama. She thought maybe she'd been wrong. Maybe it wasn't practical. Maybe nobody needed it. She was wrong about being wrong. Everyone needed it. They just didn't know it yet. 1910s. The automobile industry explodes. In 1900, there were 8,000 cars in America. By 1910, there were 458,000. By 1920, there were 8 million. Cars were everywhere, and every single one had the same problem Mary had noticed in 1902. Drivers couldn't see in bad weather. Accidents skyrocketed. People died. In 1916, the American Automobile Association reported that poor visibility was a leading cause of traffic accidents. Drivers were crashing because they couldn't see through snow, rain, and mud. Engineers started looking for solutions, and they invented the windshield wiper, except they didn't invent it. Mary Anderson had invented it in 1903, but her patent had expired in 1920. After 17 years, patents entered the public domain, so in 1920, manufacturers started installing windshield wipers. using Mary's exact design. Nobody paid her, nobody credited her, nobody even knew her name. In 1922, Cadillac became the first car company to include windshield wipers as standard equipment. By 1925, nearly every car manufacturer in America was installing them. By 1940, windshield wipers were legally required safety equipment in most states, and Mary Anderson received nothing. Not a dollar, not a thank you, not a mention in the history books. The companies that manufactured wipers made millions. The car companies that installed them made billions. Mary Anderson made zero. Here's the cruelest irony. If Mary had been able to sell her patent in 1903, she would have made a modest sum, maybe a few $1,000s, and the buyer would have made millions. But because nobody would buy it, she got nothing, and the manufacturers got it for free once the patent expired. She was punished twice, once for being a woman who invented something, twice for being right. Let's talk about what Mary Anderson actually created. The windshield wiper is one of the most important safety inventions in automotive history. A 1980 study by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration found that windshield wipers reduce accident rates by 40–60% in rain and snow. 40 to 60%. That means millions of lives saved, millions of accidents prevented, all because of a device a woman invented in 1903 and nobody would buy. Today, there are over 1.4 billion cars in the world. Every single one has windshield wipers. The global windshield wiper market is worth $8.5 billion annually, $8.5 billion every year. Mary Anderson received zero. But it's not just the money, it's the impact. Think about every time it rains and you turn on your wipers without thinking about it. That simple motion, flick the lever, wipers clear the windshield, is so automatic, so obvious, that it seems like it was always there. But it wasn't. Before Mary Anderson, there was no solution. Drivers just suffered, and crashed, and died. She saw a problem everyone else accepted as unsolvable, and she solved it. With no engineering degree, no formal training, no lab. Just observation, creativity, and a notebook. And the world rejected her because she was a woman. By the 1920s, Mary was back in Alabama, running her real estate business. She read about windshield wipers becoming standard. She saw them on every car. She knew it was her invention. But there was nothing she could do. The patent had expired. She had no legal claim. And even if she did, who would listen? She was a woman. She had no proof she'd tried to sell it. No records of the companies that rejected her. It was her word against history, and history didn't care. In the 1930s and 40s, Mary lived quietly. She wasn't wealthy, wasn't famous. She lived in a modest apartment in Birmingham. She attended church. She managed her properties. She never spoke publicly about the windshield wiper, never sought recognition. Maybe she was tired of not being believed. Maybe she didn't see the point. Or maybe, like so many women of her generation, she'd learned that her contributions would be erased no matter what she did. So she stayed quiet. On June 27, 1953, Mary Anderson died at her home in Birmingham, Alabama. She was 87 years old. Her obituary in the Birmingham News was 5 sentences. It mentioned she was a real estate developer. It listed her surviving relatives. It did not mention that she invented the windshield wiper. Not one word. The woman who created one of the most essential safety devices in history died, and nobody noticed. For decades, she was completely forgotten. Textbooks about automotive history didn't mention her. Museums didn't display her invention. When people talked about the history of the car, they talked about Henry Ford, Charles Kettering, the Dodge brothers, never Mary Anderson. In the 1960s, a few automotive historians started digging into patent records. They found patent 743801, filed by Mary Anderson 1903. They realized a woman invented the windshield wiper, and nobody knew. In 1983, 30 years after her death, Mary Anderson was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame. Better late than never, except it was too late. She was long dead. In 2011, her story started appearing in articles. Did you know a woman invented windshield wipers? It became a piece of trivia, a fun fact. But the articles always framed it the same way. She invented it but couldn't sell it because cars were too rare. That's not true. She couldn't sell it because she was a woman, and men didn't take her seriously. The articles made it sound like bad timing. It wasn't. It was sexism. In 2019, a few automotive museums added exhibits about Mary Anderson. Small plaques, a paragraph of text, maybe a replica of her patent drawing. But if you walk through those same museums, you'll see entire rooms dedicated to Henry Ford, to the assembly line, to the great men of automotive history. Mary gets a footnote. Let's talk about Henry Ford. Ford didn't invent the car. He didn't invent the assembly line. He didn't invent windshield wipers. But he became a billionaire by putting other people's inventions together efficiently. The Model T, Ford's most famous car, was introduced in 1908. Early Model Ts didn't have windshield wipers. Drivers had to stop and wipe manually, or drive in the rain squinting through wet glass. By 1919, Ford started offering windshield wipers as optional equipment. By 1923, they were standard on all Ford vehicles. Ford produced 15 million Model Ts between 1908 and 1927. 15 million cars, every single one by the end, had windshield wipers based on Mary Anderson's design. Ford's peak net worth in the 1920s was estimated at $200 billion in today's dollars. Not all of that was from wipers, obviously, but wipers were a significant safety feature that made cars practical in all weather. Mary Anderson got nothing. Ford is remembered as a visionary, an industrialist, the man who put America on wheels. Mary Anderson is a trivia question. Here's what makes this even worse. Mary tried. She didn't just invent the windshield wiper and sit on it. She actively tried to sell it. She wrote letters, made prototypes, demonstrated it. She did everything right. And she was rejected. Not because the invention was flawed, but because she was a woman. If she'd been a man, history would be different. A man with that patent in 1903 would have found investors, would have started a company. By 1920, he'd be a millionaire. His name would be in textbooks. But Mary was a woman, so she was dismissed, and then erased. This is the pattern. Inventors like Garrett Morgan, Lewis Latimer, and Nikola Tesla were marginalized because of race or lack of capital. Mary Anderson was marginalized because of gender. The system didn't care about the quality of the invention. It cared about the identity of the inventor, and if you were the wrong identity, you lost, no matter how brilliant you were. In 2013, a historian found letters Mary had written to potential investors in 1905. The letters were polite, professional, detailed. She explained the mechanics, included drawings, offered licensing terms. One investor responded, "Madam, I suggest you focus on matters more suited to your sex." Another wrote, "While your enthusiasm is charming, this device has no practical application." No practical application. 15 years later, every car in America had one. Mary kept those rejection letters. She filed them carefully. Maybe she knew. Maybe she understood that one day someone would look back and need proof. Proof that she tried. Proof that she was ignored. Proof that it wasn't her fault. This is still happening. In 2015, a study found that patents filed by women are 40% less likely to be approved than those filed by men, even when controlling for field and experience. In 2018, female entrepreneurs received just 2.3% of venture capital funding. In 2020, a woman inventor sued a major auto company for stealing her design for a car safety feature. She won. The company paid a settlement and buried the story. In 2023, women hold only 13% of patents in the United States. Not because women aren't inventing, but because the system still doesn't take them seriously. Mary Anderson's story isn't history. It's ongoing. Every time it rains and you turn on your windshield wipers, you're using Mary Anderson's invention. Every time you drive safely in a storm, you're benefiting from her genius. Every time a wiper clears your windshield and you don't even think about it, that's her legacy. But you didn't know her name. Until now. And that's the problem. We remember the men who profited. We forget the women who invented. We build statues of Henry Ford. We put his name on museums. We give Mary Anderson a small plaque, 80 years after she died. And we act like that's enough. It's not enough. Mary Anderson died poor, not because she wasn't brilliant, not because she didn't try, but because the world she lived in didn't believe women could invent things. And when she proved them wrong, they took her invention and erased her name. She deserved better. She deserved to see her invention on every car in America. She deserved to be wealthy, famous, celebrated. She deserved to be remembered. Instead, she died in obscurity, while the men who used her invention made billions. That's not just sad, it's theft, legal, systematic theft, and it's still happening. Mary Elizabeth Anderson, born 1866, died 1953, invented the windshield wiper in 1903. Patent 743,801. Tried to sell it, was rejected by every company. Patent expired in 1920. By 1925, every car in America had windshield wipers. She received nothing, died poor and forgotten, while Henry Ford made billions, while manufacturers made millions, while 1.4 billion cars in the world use her invention. Every single day, every time it rains and you turn on your wipers, remember her name. Not because it's a feel-good story, but because she was robbed. Because brilliance isn't enough if you're the wrong gender. Because the world took her genius and gave her nothing. Remember Mary Anderson, the woman who made driving safe and died invisible. Remember her name.